Welcome to Get Your FRQ On. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use your graphing calculator to evaluate the derivative of a function at a specified value of x equals c. So the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need the function that you're interested in entered into your y equals editor, or at least that will make it easier. And there's a couple of different ways you can evaluate the derivative of a function. Right? So one way is if you're on the graphing interface, you can go to Second Calc, right? So Second Calc, which is the trace button, right? And when we do that, we get this menu, and notice that dy dx, which is one of the notation for derivatives, is option 6. So let's click on 6, and then your cursor will show up on your graph. Just move it to somewhere on the graph where you want to evaluate the derivative. Let's say 6.09. I click enter, and it just tells me the derivative, negative 0.036902. Great. Notice that it's also color-coded. If I had more than one function on this screen, like say a function that was graphed and it was in red, if I wanted to find the derivative somewhere on that function, then this text would all be in red to match whatever function you are working with. In this case, I happen to be working on a blue function, so it shows me everything in blue. Right, so there's one way to evaluate the derivative. Right, but that's really the closest I can get to 6. What if I was really interested in 6 specifically? And I just can't get there on the graph the way it is, so I'm going to exit out of here, quit. If I go to the math button, this button right here, option 8 is called nderiv, and that basically finds exactly the same information, although it does it analytically. So if I choose option 8, right, first I have to say, all right, well, what variable am I interested in differentiating with respect to? Well, that would be x. And then I need a function here, like an expression or a function. For me, I have it in y1, so I'm just going to go back to variables, y variables, function, y1. And then I need to input the specific value of x I'm interested in. Let's say I want the derivative at 6 exactly. I click enter, and I get a numerical value. All right, so there's a more analytic way to get a value for the derivative of a function at a point. For those of you who are taking AP exams and using a graphing calculator on either AP Stats or one of the AP Calc exams, when you're allowed to use a calculator, using calculus features from the graph interface is generally not as precise as using the analytic ones from the math menu. So if you ever had to do this on the AP Calculus exam, for example, you would want to use the math menu one. You would not want to do this from the graphing interface. There was an example like a year or two ago where the difference, it just happened to be where the difference showed up as the answer, and if you used the graphing interface and rounded it wrong, you would be like 1/1000th away, but that's the criteria. You got to be correct to 3 decimal places, and it wasn't, and so students who did that ended up losing that point or not being awarded that point. So if you actually have to do this on the AP exam, make sure you use the math menu one and not the graph interface. The graph interface is slightly less precise.